Hello and welcome. Though that was a cut, wasn't it? Usually I fade in. Sorry about that. Welcome to this edition of Dr. K's Psychobabble. We have interesting conditions upon which I am recording right now. It is pouring rain on my metal roof, so you're probably hearing some sort of hum going along with that. I apologize with that, but I'm trying to stick to my schedule. And I wear hearing aids, so I just turn it down and I can't hear it. So, a little selfish approach there. But today we have an interesting topic that we're going to explore, and that is gambling. Now, not just any sort of gambling, but slot machines and slot machines in casinos, and why those are so lucrative for casino owners and the owners of slot machines. We're going to look at a little bit of the psychology that goes into, again, not only the slot machine, like the title, but also the context in which we find those that leads us to engage in behavior that for some lead down a not so bright path. People can become very addicted to gambling and very addicted to gambling in slot machines. So while part of this is really recognizing the science that goes on behind the scenes in a casino, it is also a dire sort of explanation as to how these mechanisms come together, and for some people may not be a very good path. So I have for you here a picture. Let's say here's our casino. And you can see that there are banks of slot machines, and you see the colored lights and the kind of almost mirrored ceiling, the repetitive patterns on the carpet. And I want to take this time to highlight some of the actual components here. And we're going to go through each one of these individually as to the aspects of this environment that encourage you to keep sitting at that slot machine and keep putting money in. The first one, of course, is lighting. We're going to be looking at that particular area. We're going to be looking at a sense of timelessness and how this environment creates a sense that no time is passing. We're going to look at socializing and what that means in a casino. Stimulation, obviously, we're going to be looking at some of these things. This is a static image. If this was a movie, it'd be drowning out the rain on my roof. Lots of noise going on inside of a casino. We're going to look at the music specifically and the music selection within a casino and how that contributes to what we see. And we're going to talk about flow, the actual sense of being in the moment. We're going to borrow a little bit about there's a very positive component to flow, but in this particular context, it's not really the best expression of flow. And then finally, the reward mechanisms that are built into casinos and how they work. So, let's move those over and get ready to discuss each one of these. Now, for this particular Dr. K's Psychobabble, I'm going to go through each one of these, and in the square I'm just going to go through each one of them. You're not going to see me for a little graphic intensive here going through each one of these, but we'll have sort of a summative discussion at the end. So we're going to start off by taking a look at lighting. Now here's some things that we know about lighting and its impact upon the human brain and human behavior. Now, for one, it is high contrast, bright and dark. If you look at that original picture, there is very bright colors and very dark colors that really, and the bright colors are deeply saturated. I mean, there's a lot of color there. It's very yellow. It's not just a, sort of tame yellow. It's very yellow, very red, very green, neon type colors, really bright, contrasting against dark backgrounds so they really stand out. The colors are action-oriented colors. You don't see browns, light blues. You don't see greens, like grass greens or forest green. These are not colors that you would see in a casino. They're more the bright colors, almost like racing colors, increasing that level of energy. The lights are often moving, particularly in the actual machines themselves. We'll have moving lights, moving images now with animations and all that. That's certainly a huge part of the brand new slot machines that are out there. And the lights are blinking. I mean, of course, some of the movement is because of that blinking, and but the blinking lights are, just like the reason why we might have a blinker, on our car. We put our blinker on and it grabs somebody's attention. Now, what this all actually does is there's a part of the brain that called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which to me is the coolest sounding part of the brain. I love saying supra, above, chiasmatic, a chiasm, nucleus. It rests right up above the part of the brain in the middle brain where the left and right eye neurons come together and then go to the opposite ends of the brain. It's that chiasm there. And then right above that, reacting very close to the visual signals, is the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which turns on and turns off the release of melatonin. Now, in our regular cycles of the day, in our regular circadian rhythms, there, pulled that one out. That's actually a future Dr. K's psychobabble is circadian rhythms. In our regular circadian rhythms, our body starts to excrete melatonin right around 7 p.m. on the regular. This is biological. This is for everybody. Starts releasing that, and melatonin, as you know, helps our brain to relax and helps us to fall asleep. Now, what happens with all of these high contrast lights and whatnot, the input into the eyes, which is sending signals to the suprachiasmatic nucleus as to the day-light cycle, is getting very mixed messages. As we move around the room, we're moving from dark areas to bright areas to dark areas to bright areas, and the suprachiasmatic nucleus really doesn't know what to do. So melatonin is not readily available. There still are internal clocks, but the suprachiasmatic nucleus is confused, and it is not going to be sending as readily signals to release melatonin. And therefore, in this kind of scenario, we are more awake. We are more alert because we don't have as much melatonin running through our system. So that talks about the effect just of the lighting. Now, let's take a look as why do we get this sense of timelessness? And we look at this picture again that's sort of in the background, you're going to realize there's no windows. There's never any windows. I've been to Las Vegas, and even there, where you kind of walk in off the streets sometime, by the time you get to the casino, you can't even see the daylight. You don't know. There's no external cue. Let's keep that suprachiasmatic nucleus confused. There's never a window to look out and say, wow, it was light a while ago, and now it's dark. I must have been here for a long time. That is not what they want. There are no windows, so no external cues as to what time it is, and certainly no clocks. Owners of casinos don't want you to know what time it is. They want you to be lost in the flow and stay there in this sort of timeless atmosphere. This is very interesting too. Now, we're going to talk about music specifically and the fact that there is a lot of sound going on. I said that a while ago. If that was a movie, you would hear things. But the level of the sound is about the same. Now, the carpeting, which is very plush, usually very plush and padded carpeting, and non-sound reflective ceilings make for a steady level of sound, just very steady. And this is part of not so much the stimulating part, the light's taking care of that, but it's part of the zoning part. The music, the conversation, which is loud, and the machines, which are loud, but they're somewhat what we would call compressed. The sounds are compressed. It's not too loud, not too soft, and all the sounds are within a certain volume. Okay, so it's almost constant. And wherever you go, if you just happen to be in a casino sometime, walk around, and there's little peaks of sound every once in a while, but pretty much there's just this kind of like level of sound that's going on, kind of like the rain on my roof. It's just this sort of like presence of a sound, and that is part of the planning to just sort of have that timelessness. You're not having those experiences of conversations ebbing and flowing, songs being done, songs starting again. Those are all indicators of time, which the owners of casinos do not want you to have. There are no cues for time passage, as little cues as possible unless you wear a watch. And I know of some people that wear watches and they put set timers on them so they continually be aware of this. And as I was putting this together, this reminded me of the movie that came out. Great set of young adult fiction about Percy Jackson. He's a human half god from the Greek pantheon of gods, son of Poseidon. And well, in the first movie, they end up in Las Vegas, and they end up at I think it was the Lotus Club or the Lotus Casino. And the magic that goes on at the Lotus is that individuals who are eating the little cakes are being swayed into a sense of timelessness. And in the movie, they expand this out. You know, there's a person that's been there since like 1971. You know, they just lose track of time. And this is sort of really interesting in the movie, sort of play on this idea that casinos want you to lose track of time. I mean, of course, it's fictitious, and we won't be there for years, hopefully. But it sort of plays on that notion that we walk in there and then time ceases to exist. And in the trap that is represented by the Lotus Club in this movie, they almost get caught for all time. So it's sort of a play on that sense of timelessness within a casino that they included in that particular movie. Now, when we think of socializing, we think about going out with friends, and there's no doubt that casinos want people to go out together, but there's an interesting collection of factors associated with socializing when it comes to gambling. For one, it is, of course, a gathering of people, and individuals who like to be around people will find other people at the tables. They will find other people sitting next to them at the slot machine, and they'll find other people in the bar and the restaurant and all those things, and they can be around those people, but there is no need to interact. You could be right next to someone, and there is no pressure to interact. So this is inclusive. If you think about this as inclusive of both extroverted and introverted people can go. Extroverted people can be there, and they can be talking to everybody, doing their thing, and introverted people can go in there and be a part of it, and it's perfectly okay in that scenario to not say anything. So what an ideal situation for, let's say, an introverted person or someone who just wants to kind of zone out for a bit, to go there and be in this socially rich environment, things going on. They get to enjoy that with absolutely no pressure to participate. How compelling that can be. Very different than going out with the friends to a restaurant where conversation is going to be mandated. So a very attractive part of going to casinos is this dichotomy of both social and non-social opportunities. It has a definitive party atmosphere, like you're going out and you're with it, with the crowd, you know, dressing up and going out. You're isolated while you are surrounded by people. Again, a play on that notion that we can be around people, we don't necessarily have to interact with them. And finally, of course, ample opportunities for the consumption of alcohol. And alcohol has always been sort of a part of the casino world. Alcohol is a suppressant drug, meaning the reason why we act foolish, let's say, under the influence of alcohol, or some people act foolish under the influence of alcohol, is because it suppresses our ability to self-regulate. So we are less likely or less quick at realizing that impulse that's coming us to say a funny joke, and we say it, our filter is outside in the car, and we just say things, and some people can get in trouble. Some people are really funny. Some people, are jerks. But certainly it is a way for people to relax because of that suppressing feeling that comes from the alcohol in your system that enhances our ability to socialize if we're shy. It also lowers our inhibitions to spend money, to buy food, to eat food, to consume the products that are being sold at the casino. And it is also suppresses our resistance to the lighting and the sound and all that stuff. And ultimately, it's kind of, again, pushing you to that zone that the establishment wants you to be in so that you stay and keep spending money. So that's their goal. So we've had lighting, timelessness, and socialization so far. Finally, of course, very obvious one, stimulation. So while we want individuals to get into the zone, we also, they walk away from the table, we want them greatly stimulated to keep them awake. Slots are very visually stimulating. They are also very orally stimulating. There's moving pictures, and nowadays, aside from the, used to be just the wheels turning for the different options that would come up on the slot machines, now they're digital. So you have movies, you have animations, the actual slot things are animations, and maybe when the sevens come up, the seven is dancing. I mean, it's all of these things just that much more stimulating visually and auditorily, so that we are continually being attracted to this particular image in front of us, hence the slot machine, how long we can sit there in front of them. This is in great contrast. This visual stimulation and oral stimulation are in great contrast to the softness of the rest of the room. These chairs are really comfortable. They are very comfortable. The floor is like walking on cushion. The bars have nice, any table, many of them will have those cushions that you can lean against, particularly the gambling tables. You can put your elbow. This is the place they want you to put your elbows on the table, right? Right on those cushions. Everything is comfortable, while the information that's going directly to your brain is ultra stimulating. So again, that contrast, which leads to more alertness, focuses your eyes where you want them to be. You're not feeling that chair. It's not like that uncomfortable chair that says, oh, my back is starting to hurt. Nope. Nice, comfortable chairs. I want your body nice and relaxed, but I want your mind totally enveloped in the visual and auditory stimulus that we've surrounded you with. The themes themselves, popular music, popular artists, pop stars, you'll have, Jennifer Lopez will be up there, those kinds of, just to name one, and you'll have themes across the slot machines that also are very stimulating. And to enjoy these, think about, you're seated at the table or you're seated in front of the slot machine. You don't have to move to see this. You look around. Just look at that picture you just look around and you are full of stimulation, almost like those, those very widescreen movie theaters, those Max theaters, that you're just surrounded by sound, surrounded by vision. It is coming in, peripherally is coming. You don't have to move very much, and all that stimulation is right there. So there's, again, this contrast of color, sound, movement, and stimulation into your brain while your body is relaxed, with the alcohol prepping you for the act of gambling. Let's look specifically at the music, some things about the music that's happening. It's usually very upbeat, like fast food restaurants versus, casual, very, very casual dining, or very, the kind of dining that would come with a very fancy restaurant or something. They might have some very slow music because they want you to take your time eating, because the more you eat, the more they make. In a casino, in the restaurants, and what you'll have upbeat music, because they want you out of there. They're not making a lot of money on the food. They might not even be making any money on the food. They want you back at the table as soon as you can. Upbeat music, continuing out as you walk around to different areas of the casino. Usually, it's the soundtrack with no lyrics. Now, it's not 100%. I've heard lyrics. I've heard pop songs like you'd hear on the radio. But usually no lyrics, but you can definitely hear and recognize what the music is. You'd recognize the song, but you're not singing along. They don't want your focus on the music. They want the music to go into the background, but they want your foot tapping so you can tap it all the way over to a slot machine. It's usually a very steady beat. These are usually pre-recorded sequences, hours and hours long, and the beats are matched. So just like that pattern in the carpet that was in that original image is just a wavy pattern that repeats itself. You can almost think that that's the beats of the sound, just the same beats. Everything's the same. Everything's within that volume. That's all there while the lights are moving and they're doing all this, and that's extremely stimulating, but at the same time steady. They seem to contrast each other. But the lights and sounds are keeping you so awake that just becomes the hum. The hum becomes those music and the carpet and all that they're going to perform their magic with you to get you to gamble. The music will fade into the background and just become part of everything else that's there. And they actually match music to different areas in the places where they want you to stay for different amounts of time, or it's a different kind of game. The music that's piped into the poker area is going to be different than the music piped into the slots area, to bring about different kinds of behavior. There's a science to this, so they might, let's say in the poker area, they might want people a little bit more, not as gunned, because usually there might be even more stakes, more high stakes. If you've ever sat at a high stakes table, I went to a high stakes table once. I don't gamble, but watched people, with $2,000 chips, throwing them in. And you want people to be somewhat, you don't want them to be right up here. You want them to be here, but you want them to stay, you want them to be comfortable. And the music was decidedly different. A little bit closer to those fancy restaurant type places. It wasn't quite as upbeat, a little bit more serious game, different kind of attitude. And they're knowledgeable about that, about how they pipe music into different places to get a different effect. Now look at some of the deeper psychology here. The concept of flow comes from the field of positive psychology. And in a nutshell, what it represents is, let's say you're watching a professional basketball game and somebody's taking a foul shot, and you watch the individual. It's a high pressure shot. It's a free shot, free points, bonus. And they're sitting there, and usually the fans behind the backboard are going bananas. They're like waving things, trying to distract the individual as they're concentrating. But the professional athlete is able to get into a state of mind. They often do that through ritual. They'll bounce the ball a certain number of times. They roll their shoulders, do one of these, bounce it 2 more times, and they do the same thing every time. That ritual gets them into that mode that we call flow. And then the body actions that they've practiced thousands of times operate flawlessly and rarely miss a foul shot. Now, flow, that being in the sense, that is a very cool place to be. People desire that. When we're being creative, let's say you're a crafting person, you're a woodworker or something, and you get lost in your work, and then the same thing happens that they want. You get lost in your crafting, and suddenly it's like, I must be hungry. I missed dinner 2 hours ago, because you've lost all that time. Now, they want the same thing. So to get you in that flow, it feels good. When you're doing creative work, you're like, wow, I was like really in the moment. It's very cathartic, very good feeling. I walk away having really sort of expressed myself. They want to capture that same feeling with the way that they organize the stimulation so we feel like we're in the zone. And so when we talk about someone being in the zone positively or someone zoning out, well, it's an escape. We experience the flow and focus, and I like this term, dark flow. It's the dark flow. We're escaping to that place. We're in our own little world. We do experience that flow and focus that we would get from creative activities that we become engaged in, but it's a dark flow. It's holding us captive to a machine that essentially is designed to take our money. It is a sense of mindfulness, focus, flow, but without any of the benefits associated with that, because you're simply acting with a machine. You're only interacting with a machine that has been pre-programmed to determine when you're going to win and when you're not going to win. And that is the last and final part here, is the rewards. Now, the fact remains that if you look at the statistics of people and their winnings in casinos, a very large amount of money that they take in actually goes out to winners. It's actually remarkably large, up into the 80%, 90%. I did research on this quite a few years back. I didn't do that again for this particular presentation, but very, very high. It's interesting that casinos operate on a very narrow margin at the top. They send out a lot of their earnings, actually go back as winnings, but they're rare. They're big winnings to a few people. That keeps people there drinking, eating, putting money, and it creates a very solid and dependable margin of profit. And that profit, imagine that profit pays for all of that stuff. So the reward mechanisms are really deeply tied to the psychology of behaviorism, and we're going to sort of explore some of that right now. Well, for one thing, alcohol, lowering our inhibitions, making things easier to do, we were less likely to stop, and the sort of happy feeling that we get when we're drinking alcohol and engage in this sort of flow-like behavior. Nowadays, they actually remove the money component. You go to a cashier and you buy either tokens or there's a card that has value on it, and you stick the card in. You're not putting money in. Again, research has shown that if you're reaching into the pocket and you're putting more cash, you take out another 20, you're less likely than if you have that card. This is why credit cards work, right? If we were actually paying that in cash and we had to kind of count it out, we would recognize how much money we're spending. When we just have to slide or insert the card, we're not as aware of the outflow of money. So they're certainly taking advantage of that. So they move essentially from a behavioral point of view into a token economy. That the money is not really money. It represents just value. It's in fact, we might even say, how much do you have on your card? How many points or how many credits or something like that? They remove the monetary component, even if it's a one-to-one. Even if it's like one credit, $1, you're not gonna look and say, at the end of the day, you might say, oh, I have $50 on this. During the day, I have 50 credits. It's a different language used to draw your attention to that it's not money. So we're dealing with something that may not necessarily in the moment be reflected as money, but it represents money. So we're a little bit more free form on what we're willing to do with it. The winning, if you're at a slot machine and you look up at the instructions, now I don't spend a lot of time in casinos at all, and I'm not really the gambling type, but the different ways that you can win, the different combinations, is complex. And part of that is that you can enhance the sense of surprise when you win. If I knew I just had to get one thing, I had to get like 7s all across, I would just do that till I got 7s. But what if I'm going along and like, oh, I just won, and I look up and it's one of those bizarre combinations of, oh, I got one of those bizarre combinations. I'm on a streak. Right. No, you're not. It's just simply making winning surprising because of those complex patterns. And that's, of course, makes winning just a little bit of money, makes it very exciting because I didn't even know I was going to win. I looked at it and I thought, this isn't a winning combination, but it was. How cool is that? Probably the most powerful component is that the winnings on a slot machine come to us in a variable ratio reinforcement schedule. Now, this necessitates a little bit of orientation toward reinforcement schedules. Now, in behaviorism, when we get a behavior, when we do something and we get a reward, we're kind of looking at first one-to-one. Every one behavior produces a reward. This would be like piecework. Like I'm creating computer keyboards and I'm going to make $1 for every one that I do. So every time I complete a keyboard, I get $1 because a one-to-one ratio of every time I do that behavior, I'm getting a $1. That's not how casinos works. Casinos want you to repeat the behavior over and over, and you'll win every once in a while. It's not a pattern. It's not a certain number of times because we'd all figure it out, right? 7 times, we get one. 7 more times, we get one. I mean, that would ruin the whole thing. We would know when the wins are going to happen. However, that does work in our workplace. We go to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, maybe, and then maybe another Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we get paid. So, and every time it's a fixed ratio. Every 10 work days we get a check. And I know that it's for the previous week, but regardless of that, from a behavioral standpoint, we're able to sustain 2 weeks of work and then getting a reward, and we get it every time. Casinos work on a variable ratio. We don't know how many times we have to act in order to get that reward. We might walk in, put our money in. I was going to crank the arm. They don't have those anymore. Press the button, and I win right away. One behavior, one reward. That won't always happen. Sometimes I'm going to have to do it. Sometimes I could go all day. Sometimes I do 5, and then it's 50 before I get another one. It's all over the place. When B.F. Skinner was doing his original work and he was scientifically looking at the ways in which we can maintain animal behavior, he looked at those different ratios. What if I reward every time? What if I reward every 5th time? What if I reward 5, 8, 6, 1, and I variable, and the variable ratio schedule of reinforcement was the most powerful in terms of maintaining that behavior. Now, we have all kinds of examples of this. Of course, gambling is the best one. But variable ratios of behavior will cause people to repeat behaviors for a very long time. Let's say, that there's a light switch in your home that's a little faulty, a loose wire or something. Probably should get it fixed, but and you go up there and you click it, doesn't work, but you click it like 2 times and then it comes on. Oh, okay, it's all set. That behavior, I had to click it 3 times. And let's say the next time you took a bit a little longer to click 5 times. Next time you went, it was 1 time. Just because it's a loose wire, it's sort of, that pattern will lead to you going into that room and just go click, 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 click until it comes on. That's been scientifically shown that people under a variable ratio of behavior reinforcement will learn how to do something over and over and over and over until they get the results. And that's exactly the kind of addictive behavior that individuals who own slot machines want. They don't want you to be aware. That's just keep going. Just keep going. It's going to happen eventually, and it might happen big. And oh, there's a little one. And there's a one. Free alcohol. Keep going. Keep on. Another alcohol. Well, I think I'm hungry. Restaurant's right over there. But I got to get, next one might be. You see the pattern of behavior that starts to happen because we just do not know when the reward's going to come. This is not luck. This is science. When the machines are designed, they're designed to pick those random times. The people in the office can look up on the computer and they can tell exactly when machines are going to hit. They know exactly when it's going to happen. That somebody has to press the button, but someone might be going along, they walk away, and there's somebody in the back room that says, wow, the person who goes to that machine the next time is going to be in for a surprise because the next button's a big winner. They know exactly when those things are going to happen. So the amount of money going out is programmed into the environment. So the system is fixed. It does engage you in behavior. It uses all of these things to engage you in this behavior and keep you in that behavior. I don't like casinos, so I play music in them, and I've gambled a little bit, and I don't personally find it exciting. My wife really likes them. We went up to our recent casino. Recently went up to the casino in Bangor, Maine. And we went there. It was a pretty quiet day, and we went up to the to the roulette table, and it was just the two of us and the person that was doing the roulette. And we had our drinks, and we're just playing a little bit here and there, and we just had a nice conversation with them. And of course, the people who work there are very aware that some people lose control here. And he was saying, he said, and he kind of like really put it in perspective for me. He says, we should approach this as entertainment. We pay for our entertainment. We pay for a movie. We pay for a video. We pay for someone to pay to a concert and stuff like this. And this is your entertainment. So you would expect that money would go out to be entertained. And it's an active form of entertainment. And he said, when it's no longer entertaining, when it's no longer an entertainment, that's when it's a problem. And he was very real about this. It was a very interesting conversation with that particular employee there. And it was really, really insightful. So we paid for some more entertainment, and then we called it a night. So this is my video on why slot machines work, why casinos work, why they make so much money, and why we, as consumers of that kind of entertainment, need to be really careful about how we spend our time there, being aware of all that, so that gambling remains entertainment and doesn't become a problem. So thank you, and I'll see you next time.